We do so at a very special moment in history, the day after the European Union member states made a historic decision to open accession negotiations for Moldova and Ukraine, making a crucial milestone in the path towards closer ties within the European family. We trust that the Romanian and Moldovan diasporas in the US will play a pivotal role in Moldova's trajectory for full integration in Euro-Atlantic community structures of shared values, and let us hope that our diaspora's intellectual capital may be mobilized as it had in the past when anchoring Romania's safe harbor 25 years ago. His Excellency Ambassador Ursu worked for 2 decades in the field of international development assistance and academia. He has deep experience in European, transatlantic, and Eurasian affairs, with a focus on democratic practice, diplomatic relations, human rights, anti-corruption, media, and civil society development. Before assuming his current duties since 2014, Ambassador Ursu served as Division Director for Europe and Eurasia at Open Society Foundations in London. Ambassador Ursu spent over a decade in Brussels as Senior Policy Assistant at the Open Society European Policy Institute, where he developed deep knowledge and practice of the European Union's policymaking and funding mechanism. Prior to his move abroad, he was a lecturer of the international law and human rights at the Moldova State University, where he actually graduated in 1997. He managed the establishment there of the master's degree in EU law and human rights at the law school of the Moldova State Universities, with the support of an EU funded program. So there's no better person or more qualified to speak today about the historic EU decision and the envisioned future of shared common home of Moldova in the EU. Ambassador Ursu, maybe.
Mulțumesc, bună ziua tuturor, sper că m-am auzit și mulțumesc Teodor pentru invitație.
Felicitări!
Mulțumesc, e o mare sărbătoare acasă, dar în același timp știm că e primul pas abia. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to meet so many people, some of them whom I know and I met at other events, but I'm also happy to connect with a broader Romanian diaspora. When I arrived last year in Washington, and this is my first diplomatic mission to represent my country, I was looking for an association of Moldovan diaspora. To my surprise or not, I actually couldn't find it in Washington, though I know that there are many Moldovans, many professional Moldovans, especially working around here in the global financial institutions. However, I did find Moldovans socializing and gathering and being part of the Romanians of DC Association, where really made me feel very welcome. And this is where I was very pleased to see that both of our diasporas from the Republic of Moldova and Romania are united and keep the traditions, the common traditions, the language and the tradition here in Washington, DC. Most recently, again, in many places, I traveled in the US in the past year. Anywhere I would go and I would be looking to connect with diaspora from my country, I always see them united and working and gathering together with the Romanian diaspora. Most recently, Ambassador Muraru and I traveled to New Jersey together there was an opening of the new honorary consulate in New Jersey, Romanian honorary consulate. And again, I was very pleased to see a united community from both countries in that state. I also feel myself still part of a diaspora. I left Moldova 20 years ago in 2003. As many of you probably, my immigration from Moldova was in pursuit of professional development. I did graduate law. I'm not a historian, so I'm not probably a good storytelling as the historians are. But I left to study European law at that time in Poland, College of Europe. That's where my dream really solidified of seeing a large Europe that brings peace and prosperity for every country in Europe, which also allows the realization of the potential of each individual. I'm a big believer in European projects. That was the reason why I returned back after my studies. And as you mentioned, I went to teach at the law school, the new courses of human rights, which was, again, this is a relatively new concept for the Republic of Moldova at that time, and European law, community law. It was a very long dream for us, for the Republic of Moldova. That was in 1998. But I still believe that Moldova will need lawyers that at one point we will need to start negotiations about accession. Again, in my pursuit of that dream, and also to pursuit of a professional development, I moved to Brussels, where actually I spent 11 years working on the previous EU enlargement, including on Romania accession, Bulgaria, Poland, and Baltic states, and Turkey. At some point, I was very desperate that Moldova was not getting closer to the EU. So probably that was the reason when I continued to move around Europe and work on accession of other countries. I lived, as I said, I lived in many countries, in Poland, in Brussels, in France. The last 9 years I spent in London, but I always felt connected to what was happening at home. I was very lucky to work for one of the American foundation that was investing substantial funds in Moldova in education, public health, rule of law reforms, anti-corruption, and judiciary reforms. And I felt, and that gave me opportunity to remain connected with the developments back home and also be useful and supporting some of those reforms that were actually transforming slowly Moldova into what is now hopefully a stronger democracy. In being and living abroad, I probably like you, I really appreciated the power of networking. And these kind of gatherings, even nowadays, and in the old days, we had more opportunity together in person. And I always found that the conversation at coffee breaks and at the late hours reception around the bottle of Moldovan wine, hopefully, was really bringing people closer. But I think we learned and we mastered the networking and communications online after the pandemic, and I still hope that these kind of relations you are building here will be strengthened. And again, as I said, in many places I lived, and I always find a way to connect to the Moldovan and again Romanian diaspora, which work very closely and we're interconnected. As you probably know, Moldova is it faces a similar I wouldn't say problem, but a similar trend as Romania probably in early 90s is the emigration. When Moldova declared independent in 91, the population were 4.3 million. Nowadays, when we counted just a few months ago how many people still permanently live in Moldova, the number is down to 2.5 million. So we have probably more than between 800 and 1 million of Moldovans that live either permanently or temporarily abroad. This is probably a bigger percentage of Romanians, though I know in total numbers, of course, Romanians, the diaspora is much bigger. We're also a unique country, being outside the European Union, where most of its citizens, or many of its citizens, are actually European passport holders. We have probably about 1 million of those Moldovans, and probably most of the Moldovans that live abroad, they're also holders of Romanian passports. So that also explains why our diasporas are so interconnected. Again, if you know the example of my family, I'm also a member of a family of emigres these days. 2 years ago, I was in charge of organizing a birthday party for my grandmother. She was 100 years old, and I was in charge of the invitation list. So I was making the list, tracking down all the dissenters from her. And she's a very tiny lady, but she had 9 children, and overall she had 42 dissenters. Surprisingly, my grandmother, she comes from a small village in Central Republic of Moldova, not too far from Chisinau. It's like 40 kilometers. But at that time, she never left her village. She almost went only once to Chisinau, which looked very far away. My mother and my father, they actually lived in the same village on the same street. There was no Facebook or other dating application. That was kind of the village was your base to look for your partner. So it was very unusual for Moldovans at that time to, even to move around within the country. And when I traced out the 42 of her dissenters, I was, surprised that actually more than half of them, they live abroad. And this is the story of probably every family in Moldova. So I have many of my cousins, most of my cousins are actually living abroad. And I can say all of them, they're also holders of Romanian passports, which again, as you know, Moldovans, because of our history, are entitled to the citizens. Like my grandmother in 40s, when the Soviet Union, after the ultimatum of Stalin, occupied what is now Bessarabia, which is now Republic of Moldova, she never renounced to her Romanian passport, to her Romanian citizenship, which actually allows all her dissenters to claim back the Romanian citizen. Many of my family, most of them, they live in Romania, but also Italy, UK, and I also found some of them here in the US. But I'm always happy and surprised to find those Moldovan in diaspora who are ready to give back, who are longing for home, and they still call the Republic of Moldova, probably in your case, Romania, home, and they want to bring home. Actually, most recently, through Romanians of DC, for instance, I met her, again, it's a Moldovan Romanian passport holder. I thought her story is very, it's not an exceptional story, but it's an interesting story where, she was born in the Republic of Moldova, where she done high school. As many of the Moldova's professionals looking for better professional opportunities, she went to study in Romania, university and master degrees in IT sector. Her name is Natalia Bell, as you know. She lives here in Arlington, close to Washington, DC. So she's, of course, a double citizen. Then she moved to the US to pursue another master's degree and a PhD in cybersecurity. And now she's a professor here at the Marymount University in Arlington, teaching cybersecurity to the in an American university. But she really felt that she wanted to be useful and give back to both of her, to the countries, Romania and Moldovan. She was, that's why she joined a working group composed of Romanian scientists and also Romanians from diaspora, and she contributed to the development of the national cybersecurity strategy of Romania. And based on that experience, we also invited her to contribute now to similar effort, which is happening in the Republic of Moldova. And I don't think this is an exceptional story because, as I say, many of the Moldovans, they have dual citizenship, and many of them are longing and willing to give back in one way or another. Networking also, this kind of networking provides future opportunities to give back. The reason, for instance, I decided to go back to Chisinau was also from some of the meetings, early days meetings in Brussels, where we had a gathering of our diaspora, and some of those parties that we were organizing at that time, kind of a smaller diaspora in Brussels. I got to know many of the members of the current government in the Republic of Moldova, who also went back, and they also come from the diaspora. That's how I met our foreign minister, Nicu Popescu. He was a researcher at Center for European Policy Studies in Brussels, a very active member of organizing the diaspora. That's where I actually met also the former Prime Minister, Natalia Gavrilice. She was an intern at the European Commission in Brussels, and later she was working in London and decided to come back. And many others who came back. I also had the privilege to meet, I didn't know at that time, President Maya Sandu at one of the parties here in Washington, D.C., when she was working for World Bank. And we were at that conversation, the first conversation, again, she was thinking, she was really willing to go back. She found her work at the World Bank, don't quote me, a bit dull, and she thought that her knowledge might be much more useful in the Republic of Moldova. And I'm really glad that she decided to go back. And again, I want to return to the historical day yesterday. We're expecting good news today, but even better when they come one day earlier. And indeed, it's an important milestone for Moldova's. It's still a long way, but getting closer to the European Union accession. And this is also a step closer to the dream that I mentioned, my dream that will come true, that both Republic of Moldova and Ukraine, and especially Republic of Moldova, one day will join Romania in an enlarged, peaceful and prosperous Europe. We still have a lot of homework to do. As you know, the accession process is a longer process. It might take maybe 7 to 10 years, but we also feel privileged to have the support of Romania. As you know, Romania went through this sometimes painful exercise of negotiating the accession, but it also would make our way into the EU, I hope, much faster, as we can learn from that experience, also from the mistakes. And thank you, Romania, for already translating all the EU legislation into our language, Romanian. So it's already one of a less of a hurdle. And yeah, I promise not to talk a lot, but as it always happens, I wish you a productive conversation. Unfortunately, I'll have to leave for another engagement, but I'm here and I'm available for any follow-up that you might need.
Thank you for that personal, putting a personal face to the stories of mobility and of high-skilled professionals and their contributions on both sides of the Atlantic. I think that brings a level of complexity that is easily lost in high-level discussions of this nature, and puts in context also Romania's push towards mobility, short-term mobility through the visa waiver program. We hope that some of those IT Moldovans holding Romanian passports that have been in the US may renew their visas in Bucharest and nowhere else. In the coming 10 months, they are an asset for both host and native countries. Thank you again for your service. You're either going to be very busy with parties celebrating such a momentous moment, or already starting the heavy load of working towards the hard process of negotiating the accession process and the road ahead for the Republic of Moldova. Thank you again for your service and for honoring us with your presence and your message today. Much appreciated.